Hello everyone, welcome back to the Dungeon Learner's Guide. Today we're going to be walking through how to build your first deck in Magic the Gathering. So I've got one of my decks laid out. It's the one that I've been using to kind of show you guys the ropes so far. And it's not super complicated. It's actually a version of a Pauper deck, which means there's only common cards in here. There's no rares, nothing fancy. But if you take a look around and you notice, there's a lot of 4 copies of the same card. And there's a reason for that. And that's kind of why I wanted to make this video. When you're first getting into Magic, it might seem super fun to just throw tons of cards into your deck and have, you know, a bunch of random one of cards, right? Just one in a deck. And I've had a lot of people, students of mine especially, kind of complaining that that's not working for them. And so I want to just make sure everybody knows one of the best ways to build a fun deck that's easy to play when you're just starting out is to find the cards that you really like. So for example, one of my personal favorites, Lightning Bolt, and just find 4 of them and put them in a deck, because if you remember from one of our previous videos, you're only allowed 4 of one particular card in your deck. So most of the cards in this deck are 4s. The only one that's not is actually a Rift Bolt and a Forgotten Cave, which is a land, just like the mountains. So that is my first recommendation for you when you're building your first deck, is try to have as many copies of 3 to 4 cards in your deck as possible, because one, that's going to make your life a lot easier. You don't have to worry about finding 60 different cards to throw into your deck. And 2, it's going to help you learn your deck a lot faster. You're going to know which cards are good, which cards are bad, and if you come to the decision that a card is bad, don't be afraid to take it out, right? If you're playing with a bunch of people who are gaining tons of life in a game and you realize, oh, my red deck isn't doing enough damage, maybe try switching it up. The other thing I do want to point out, though, is lands. Because I know lands aren't a fun part of the game, right? They're just there, you need a bunch of them anyway. You usually want to make sure that you have about 1/3 of your deck in lands. And obviously that changes based on the deck itself. But if you're running a 60-card deck, you usually want around 23 to 24 lands, a little bit more than 1/3 of the deck. This deck, I'll be perfectly honest, runs a little bit fewer, right? We got 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So I've only got 17 lands, which I know I'm breaking my own rules here. But there's a purpose for that. And if you notice, it's because none of this stuff costs more than 3, except for Fire Blast, but it has a secret way to cast it for free. So because I only ever need 3 lands in one game, I don't want to put too many in my deck. But if you are playing a deck that has really big creatures, you know, stuff that costs 5 or 6, you're definitely going to want to make sure you have 24, maybe even 25 lands in some cases. And what you could do too is go through and make a deck with more than one color, because I know if you're just starting out, there's tons of fun cards you want to throw in that you want to use. And so if I, for example, I'm going to show off another deck I've got sitting around. This is a Spirit deck that I have, and it is 3 colors, as you can tell just by the land here. We've got green, white, and blue. You can still do that. You can still have as many colors as you want in a deck, but I'm still going to recommend that you have about 4 cards, right? Some of the same copies over and over, so that way you're not getting too lost and too caught up in playing tons of different cards. If people are interested, we can go through this deck at a later point and we can show that off. But for right now, if you are looking for a fun deck that is super cheap, it's not going to cost you a lot of money, it's tons of fun to play, and it's actually pretty good at winning, I would recommend checking out something like what I've got here. This mono red, right, just red deck that focuses on just doing damage. So if we'll run through this super quickly, but we've got some Gitu Lava Runners, right? Little creatures that can hit your opponent super quick. Chain Lightning, Lightning Bolt, Lava Spike, Rift Bolt, all do the same thing. They just do 3 damage to something. Actually, Skew the Critics as well. Also just does 3 damage to something. And then Curse of the Pierced Heart, Searing Blaze, Thermo Alchemist, and Needle Drop all do 1 damage to something, but there's a chance that it can do more than 1. So Curse of the Pierced Heart can do 1 damage every turn. Searing Blaze can do 3 damage if you played a land this turn. Thermo Alchemist can do 1 damage every turn. And Needle Drop does 1 damage, but it also lets you draw an extra card. So again, this isn't a very complicated deck. This is something that when I'm teaching my personal students how to play Magic, I actually give them this deck to learn how to play, because it's very easy, very quick, and it's probably because of this that a lot of my students really like playing the color red. But when you're just starting out, this is, again, very simple way to start. So if you guys have any questions, or if you want to take a closer look at some decks that I have, or if you just want some tips on how to build a new deck, let me know. Put them in the comments. But I just wanted to give this quick walkthrough just in case people were struggling building their first deck. So I wish you guys all the best of luck, and I will see you all on the other side of the Dungeon Learner's Guide.